have chronic pain? Do you ever feel like you need to work on your lower body strength and your lower body balance, but struggle to do so without adding to discomfort, particularly in the low back? Well, if so, this video is for you. So as a coach who works primarily with people with chronic pain, chronic injury, and really working to gain strength over time, balance is one of the most important things we can work on. And actually doing single leg work is a nice progression in terms of strength building. So we're going to go through a progression today for a single leg deadlift or a single leg hip hinge. So a hip hinge pattern is where you're primarily moving through the hips, where you're pushing the hips back. A deadlift is a hip hinge, a hip bridge is a hip hinge. All those movements move primarily through the hips. And the beauty of that is that you actually gain strength and stability around the hip joint, which then protects knees, low back, and makes you overall stronger in your lower body. So the first type of balance movement that I like to work on is actually just standing on one foot, and then the other foot acts as a kickstand. So what we're gonna do is that you're gonna stand on one foot and the other toe is gonna kind of line up with the heel, and you're just gonna kind of hang out in this place. Now to do a hip hinge here, the first progression I like to do is actually where you take the opposite hand and you reach down and you touch that standing knee. Now this can be progressed, if you feel comfortable, to reaching down and touching lower. But the goal here is not to touch by bending down in a squat pattern with a lot of knee bend, but by touching by sticking your butt backwards, so by really pressing that hip back. This can be progressed to standing on one foot, and again, touching and coming back up and working on that balance. Now the kickstand version is not a bad version, so there's no reason to rush through the progression. It's actually much better to own where you are in the progression. So where you are in the progression is in that kickstand, breathing, touching the knee, standing up. That's a great place to be. Hang out there until you feel very comfortable. And then what you can do is you can start to lift that foot. And if I go to touch and I start to wobble, I'm just gonna put that toe back down, take a breath, kind of reset, lift it back up, and really just work through the progression until you feel like you can actually balance there very, very solidly. And where this goes to, and kind of eventually this goes to, is working on one leg at a time without that kickstand, without that balance checkpoint. But if you're not there, you're not there, so take your time with it. So as you get stronger, something that can really help is adding a dumbbell. So the dumbbell, I like to start by holding in the opposite hand. So if I am working on my right leg, I'm gonna hold the dumbbell in my left hand. And you're gonna do the same pattern. So you're gonna stick the butt backward, bend more through the hip, and we wanna feel work through the glutes, through the butt muscles, through the back of the leg. You should not feel pain anywhere. So if you feel pain, make the movement smaller or slower. Decrease your weight if you're working with weight. If you feel things popping or just feel kind of funky, again, make it smaller, make it slower, and decrease weight. So with the dumbbell, what you can work toward is working on, okay, I'm standing on one leg, I'm starting with that kickstand version, and then as you get more comfortable with it, you can start lifting that toe up. And again, start to lose your balance, you're just gonna tap it. That's great. Now, as you gain more comfort here, the next step forward, so if you're here, this is where you're at right now, the next step to start working on is taking that opposite leg and actually stretching it back a little bit. So you're really kind of thinking like a teeter-totter here, bending through the hip, and eventually we want to be able to stretch that leg all the way back as you go down and go as low as you feel like you can in your flexibility without rounding through your back. So again, this is a progression. So the goal of a progression is not to get to the end. The goal of a progression is to give you options. So if you're doing something that's a little too much for your body, and you'll know because you'll fall over, feel funky, not feel good about it, that means that today I'm gonna step it back a little bit. If you're like, man, I'm nailing where I'm at in the progression today, cool, add a little bit of challenge. But remember, the progression exists to give you choices, to give you options to go forward and back, and it's not set in stone. So you don't have to do one version of this single leg hip hinge for 6 months. It's actually better to do it day to day. So if you're having a day where your balance is not as great, add that kickstand, maybe get rid of the weight. Great. You're having a day where your balance is rock solid, awesome. Try a little through 12 the ground, maybe progress to stretching that leg back. But remember, the single leg hip hinge is oriented around the hip. So you want to feel that glute working. You don't want a ton of knee bend. You do want a little bit. And you want to really focus on breathing and finding your balance. I'm Coach Chelsea Z. I work with clients who are hypermobile, have chronic pain, or just looking to build a foundation and functional strength. So feel free to give me a follow, and thanks for watching along with me.